Dmitry Karbyshev was not a general of command, but of science. He worked on the reconstruction of the fortress of Brest-Litovsk, went on to devote decades to teaching, and in 1941, by then a lieutenant general of engineer troops, he took his doctorate in military sciences. He was the great theoretical architect of Soviet fortification, and it was precisely for that reason that the Western Special Military District called him to the new German-Soviet frontier that June. It was there that the invasion caught him. As he had no troops under his command, he was attached to the headquarters staff of the 10th Army, whose retreating column was encircled on 27th June. There followed 6 weeks of marching through the enemy rear, at the end of which barely 60 men reached the Dnieper. On August 8th, those men crossed the river under mortar fire, but a concussion left Karbyshev unconscious. After the attack, a patrol of auxiliary policemen found him in a rye field and handed him over to the Gestapo. The Germans were quick to grasp whom they were holding, and over the following 2 years, they tried to put him at the service of their military engineering. The offers came from very high up, but the general refused them all. On those grounds, the Wehrmacht's chief engineering directorate declared him fanatically devoted to the idea of loyalty, military duty, and patriotism, a hopeless case. Stripped of his status as a prisoner of war and reclassified as a political prisoner, he passed from Wehrmacht custody to the SS. He survived a number of camps, but on February 16, 1945, he arrived at Mauthausen, where he died 48 hours later. The camp memorial sets his death on February 18th, yet the details of that night rest instead on 2 accounts that do not agree. The first is hearsay. A Soviet lieutenant colonel by the name of Sorokin repeated what he was told there, that on the 17th, some 400 men were stripped in the open and driven under blows beneath freezing showers, and that Karbyshev fell towards midnight from a truncheon blow. The second comes from a direct witness. Major Seddon de St of the Canadian Army stated that he had traveled with him in a transport of 1,000 prisoners, who after a cold shower were kept standing in formation in their underclothes, and that Karbyshev did not survive that night. The details varied from one witness to another, but both accounts agreed on the essentials, and that was enough for the Soviet Union to proclaim him a posthumous hero. Stalin, who had taken reprisals against most of the repatriated generals, needed an exemplary captive, and from there, the legend grew of its own accord. In 1948, the writer Novogrudsky added the hoses and a final exhortation. In 1955, the novelist Sergei Golubov described him as a statue of ice, and in 1963, a marble monument fixed that image at Mauthausen. None of the original accounts described that scene. For all these reasons, it has been said that General Karbyshev died twice.